Hello friends, my name is Priscilla Hulu and my NCC number 1901030103 and I come from group P1A2. Now I want to practice teaching online about narrative text. Check it out.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon, Miss.
How are you? Okay, thank you. Now we want to start our lesson and the topic is narrative text. And before it, I want to ask to Abisak what the definition of narrative text. And before Abisak ask my question, I want to share the slide. Okay, you can see guys my slide.
Of course, Miss.
Okay, Abisak please. Abisak please, what the definition of narrative text?
Narrative text is part of genre, and narrative is the text which tells something.
Okay, Abisak, thank you. Now I want to explain it clearly. Narrative text is a part of genre. Narrative is the text which tells something. On the other words, narrative is created by someone for telling the story. It is including into fiction story. Any question, guys?
No, Miss. No, Miss.
Okay, I will continue to the purpose of narrative text. And I want to ask to Abisak, what the purpose of narrative text?
The purpose of narrative text is to entertain listeners or readers about a story.
Okay, thank you, Abisak. The purpose of narrative text as described above is to entertain listeners or readers about a story or story from the past that relates to real experience, imaginary or complicated events that lead to a crisis, which in turn find a solution. It is clearly, guys? Okay, thank you for your attention. Now we will continue to the generic of narrative text. And before I explain it, I want to ask to Fanny Malau, what the generic structure of narrative text?
Okay, I think there are three parts. The first is namely orientation, the second is complication, and the third is resolution. Thank you, Miss.
Okay, Fanny, thank you for your explanation. Now I want to explain it clearly. So, generic structure of narrative text have three parts. And the first, orientation, second, complication, and the last, resolution. The orientation or introduction section contains the introduction of characters in the story as well as the time and place it happened. The second, complication. The complication section contains a description of the emergence of a crisis or problem experienced by the characters in the story that must be solved. And the last, resolution. The resolution section contains how the characters from the story solve problems in the complication section. Usually, there is more than one resolution for one complication. In some reference to narrative text, there are additional generic structure to narrative text, namely the addition of coda after resolution. So, generic structure have three parts: orientation, complication, and resolution. It is clearly, guys?
Yes, Miss.
Okay, we will continue, guys.
Okay, Miss.
Okay, now I want to continue the language feature of narrative text. And before I explain it, I want to ask to Puspita. Can you explain the language feature of narrative text, please?
Yes, I can, Miss. The narrative text have the language feature that are using action verb, using simple past tense, and using certain noun as a pronouns. I think that's enough from me, Miss. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Abisa. Thank you, Puspita. Now I want to explain it clearly. Language feature of narrative text. The first, using action verb in past tense form. For the example, climbed, turned, broke, and etc. Next, using certain nouns as pronouns for people, animals, and certain objects in the story. For the example, the king, the queen, and etc. Third, using adjective that's from a noun phrase. For the example, long black hair, two red apples, and etc. Fourth, use time, connectives, and conjunction to short events. For example, then, before, after, soon, and etc. And the last, use adverbs and adverbial verbs to indicate the location of the indicate or event. For example, here in the mountains, happily ever after, and etc. Any question, guys?
No, Miss.
Okay, we will continue. In this slide, I have the example of the narrative text. You can see, guys.
Yes.
Okay. The example of narrative text in here have the title Malin Kundang. Once upon and the first, I can read the orientation in the text. The first, the orientation in the text is a once upon a time lived a diligent boy named Malin Kundang. He lived in the seashore with his mother. They were very poor, but they lived quiet and harmonious. This is the orientation. Next, the complication. The complication in the text is: one day, a big ship close to the beach near their village. They asked people to join work in their ship and went to the cross island. Malin Kundang wanted to join with them because he wanted to improve his family lives. But his mother didn't permit him. She worried to Malin still kept his argument. And finally, he sailed with the big ship. Several years later, Malin Kundang success and he became rich trader. And then he came to his native village with his beautiful wife. But His wife didn't know Malin's real distance. His happy mother quickly approached Malin and brought a plate of pile cake, Malin's favorite. But Malin didn't admit that woman as his poor mother. And then he kissed the village cat which broke by his mother until scattered. So guys, this is the complication in the text. Next, we will continue to the resolution. The resolution of the text is his mother very broken heart because Malin rebellious to her, who had crowned him. Then his mother caused Malin become stone. Suddenly, the big ship with Malin's head was facilitated by a big storm, and all of his crewmen to set aside out. Malin relates that was his fault that rebellious his mother. He bowed down and became a stone. So, the text is the resolution. Now I want to explain again about the generic structure to analysis the text of Malin Kundang. The first, you know the first orientation. The orientation or introduction section contains the introduction of characters in the story as well as the time and the place it happened. And the next, you know the complication. The complication section contains a description of the emergence of a crisis of a problem experienced by the character in the story that must solve it. And the last, you know the resolution. The resolution section contains how the characters from the story solve problems in the resolution for one complication. In some reference to narrative text, there are additional generic structure to narrative text, namely the addition of coda after resolution. It is clearly, guys. Any question?
No, miss.
Okay, guys. Thank you for your attention. That's all about my presentation. I think that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, miss. See you.